Welcome to episode 11 of the White Whale Marketing Podcast. It's in collaboration with the Sport Marketeer, just over here on the bottom of the screen. The Sport Marketeer is the newsletter that covers all the topics that we speak on within this podcast. So if you'd like to find out more and you're watching our video, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitch, I was going to say Twitter. So you can check the link in the bio. You can click on our Substack website, and you can kind of go there and read our articles and even subscribe, and then you'll get these newsletters with these topics in written form sent directly to your email inbox. So check that out. Great articles that come out every Friday. They basically just go into more detail about what we talk about on each White Whale Marketing podcast. So without further ado, and now that you've followed, at White Whale Marketing, at White Whale MKTG on all platforms, we can kind of get into business. I'm Chris. We're here with Haral today. So shout out Haral. And we got some 3 amazing topics to cover. So the first one will be in regards to the quarterback controversy in Oklahoma. Second one will be in regards to, capacity limits in, stadiums in Canada and how, teams and leagues can bring back fans to these stadiums. And last but not least, maybe it's the end of an era, right? FIFA, EA, what's going to happen next? Shout out Drake. Lots of shout outs to Drake's on these podcasts. But without further ado, let's get to this first topic. Raul, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna focus more on the off the field stuff, obviously here, because I know you guys are here for all that cool sports marketing stuff. If you guys want to learn about football, you go to a different podcast. But quick precursor here. There's a QB controversy going on at the University of Oklahoma. The Sooners, as they're called, started off with Spencer Rattler, who was supposed to be one of the best, if not the best, quarterback available in the 2022 draft. You might have heard of the name and stuff. What you may not know is that I think recently he's been benched for a QB named Caleb Williams, a freshman who is now one of the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. A lot of crazy stuff happening behind the scenes. A lot of people don't know what's going on about that, but you'll hear about this as we continue to go. Like, you'll probably hear about this for weeks and weeks, especially here on the White Whale Marketing Pod. How does this impact the player's brand? I think that's a great example of where we're going to learn and do a deep dive about how branding is so important because your time in the spotlight is so limited. Spencer Rattler, as a young guy, has his whole career ahead of him, but right now he's clearly not in the spotlight at Oklahoma. So the work that he does to build his own brand is, going to be important. And for athletes who aren't in the spotlight right now, there's a reason why establishing your brand and working on it is so important, because you never know when that switch turns on and you're in the spotlight. Enter Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has just filed 4 trademarks for 4 different things related to his own branding and his own, line of clothing he's trying to create. So this tweet here by Josh Gerben, who tweets all about different trademarks. You'll see the GIF there. That's a logo there with his initial CW. It looks like a hand. He's trademarking a silhouette of himself there. He's trademarking the name Caleb Williams. And he's also trademarking the Superman logo with his initial CW. He's trying to create a clothing line. He's trying to create a line of merchandise and basically just trying to create a brand for himself, as we've seen a lot of athletes do since the emergence of the Jordan brand. So the question here is, we're going to focus more on Caleb Williams rather than Spencer Rattler. And we'll go over to his Instagram as we kind of answer this question, Chris. But what do you think about this move by a freshman who probably is just about to head into the spotlight, has no guarantee of being in the spotlight, taking a step like this to establish his own personal brand? What do you like? What don't you like?
Yeah, so, there's so many things to get into, right? Because this is the nitty-gritty of White Whale Marketing in regards to, maximizing an athlete's time in the spotlight. So first off, let's go with the last thing you asked. What are the positives of this, right? So, first off, unreal. He's maximizing his time in the spotlight. We're all for that, okay? So that's unreal. Especially being a freshman, he's making the most of his time on, essentially the national stage in the U.S. because he's a D1 quarterback at a large school. So in that aspect, I think that's fantastic. He's doing well in regards to that. He's being progressive, right? He's not just standing pat waiting for things to come to him and waiting for his big break, which ended up happening, but he was already kind of in the process of that. So I think that's amazing. Second, I like the vision. I'm just going to keep it positive for now before we kind of get into the other aspects. I like the vision, right? it's very much maybe emulating some of his heroes, right? You mentioned the Jordan brand, maybe even other football players in regards to merchandise, camps, etc. Right? So that's kind of things that he mentioned, and even having his own logo, obviously with a silhouette, that's kind of direct nod to Jordan. With that, I guess we can kind of get into maybe the things I pick at a bit. This is still positive because I think everyone should be doing this. You should be working on your personal brand, but that's the key word, personal, right? That's kind of always things I want to refer to. A silhouette, I see athletes doing this, right? You see LeBron doing it, which is different because he's huge, but it's still kind of touching on the Jordan. And then there's another athlete that did it too. Oh, PK Subban has done it, which is different because it's hockey, but it's very much so building off of or taking away from your favorite parts of Jordan. And that's maybe my issue where I like to see things be a little more original or personal, right? I know you might be a fan where, if we go through some of these posts, we can see Caleb wearing, which one is it? We were talking about this one before we recorded. He's wearing some nice threes here, Jordan 3. So clearly he's a big fan of Jordan. Why not do things a little different, right? Why not become, Jordan for yourself, right? Why do you have to do things so similar, right? Where, when we see his trademarks, Superman, Shaq's done it, using his initials. We were looking at this, and I don't want to get too nitpicky on this, but we were looking at this and we're like, hey, what is that, right? Is a fire? Is that like too hot or something? And we just realized it was his initials. Where I have athletes sometimes ask me, oh, hey, can we get a brand going, or not a brand, a logo? And I'm kind of standoffish on this because it's about personal brand, and it kind of leads into what we're going to talk about next. Then, if you're having a logo and someone doesn't know who Caleb Williams is, and they see this one specific, this logo, how do you want them to connect it to you personally? You can't, right? And same with that silhouette. I look at that silhouette, I'm like, hey, what is he doing? And that's why I'm so much for using a face. I got great advice when I was younger about personal brands, where you don't need a logo. What needs to be there is your face. Your face needs to be the front of it, right? So that should be your logo if you're doing a personal brand. I think it's progressive. I think it's good that he's maximizing it, but there's definitely some areas to improve. And yeah, it's a great start. But that's what I'll say for now. We kind of can go back and forth on some of the stuff.
For sure. I mean, I guess there's definitely two ways to go about it from what you're saying. With the branding itself, like he could have easily created a brand for Caleb Williams, but like he could have named it something else. He could have, like, he doesn't have to put his name behind it. Like one of the examples I see is where, like a great company like Nestamental Marketing becomes White Whale Marketing, right? Where sometimes like, the man, the face, and the brand behind the operation still exists, but the message, the essence, the feelings, the sentiments of it doesn't necessarily have to have the person's name attached. So I guess my follow-up question was going to be completely on the side of the White Whale example, but do you think it's more beneficial for athletes to go this route where they're like creating a brand around their name and their face? Or is it better to create a brand, an image, an identity around something that might be that doesn't necessarily tie right into their face and name, but ends up becoming something that, you don't have to be a fan and know who Caleb Williams is to appreciate the brand? There's definitely pros and cons to both. I'm wondering what you think about that, because there's definitely, like I said, pros and cons.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's like a unreal question, right? Where simply yes and no, right? Where that's the whole thing, right? And that's something I think we're gonna get into, right? Where look at Spencer Rattler, someone who you thought was gonna be so marketable, or even Derek King, where we talked about him on a few podcasts ago, where they're pulling in these nil deals. Well, then as a all, I don't know if you want to say this, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're like, they're playing like shit, right? So how's that impacting their deals?
Derek King is out for the season, so I'll give him that. But there's a reason Spencer Rattler got benched. I'll say that.
Exactly, and and that's the whole point. You want to build a personal brand because you don't need to be dependent on, hey, I need to throw 3 TDs for my McDonald's deal to go through, right? You want to be strong enough where your core, your values, and the brand you're building can reach an audience beyond how well you do on the field that day. And that's then goes back to your question, right? Where people who aren't necessarily familiar with what you do on the field, they still know your brand because you're developing a strong brand, right? And it's not necessarily always tied back to your on-field performance. But with that, what I think personally, this is my opinion, right? Um, I see value in kind of initially, especially with a freshman quarterback who's not, necessarily big, right? It's not, Tom Brady and TB12 where you don't need the name where you kind of synonymous with what it is. I would just start with personal brand where it's Caleb Williams. I don't know, you want to do Caleb Williams shoes, Caleb Williams lifestyle, whatever, something like that. You essentially just start with the person because that's what it is. It's all kind of behind the person. And that way you can then attach your performance to it. So you do well, the brand does well. Hey, you go hiking one day and you interacting with a hiking audience and they like you, they like Caleb, then that kind of helps it as well. And then maybe with time, as it's more established, kind of similar to, Nascimento marking away in a weird thing, as they kind of get established, it organically grows into something else, right? Where I no longer viewed Nascimento marketing as it initially was, as a personal brand. I saw it as becoming a business because the different opportunities and sponsorships that were coming about it. I was like, you know what? This isn't necessarily about me anymore. People aren't following this for me in my journey. They're following for the work we're doing. So I'm like, hey, now let's go over in this aspect. And that's what I would recommend to someone like Caleb. Start off, doing your football camps, doing maybe a merch collection. Just start off with that. Maybe the merch does really well, the quality is nice, people enjoy it. Then maybe do a rebrand, right? Then kind of introduce it as, I don't know, whatever that logo is called, the C dub or whatever it is, right? And kind of go that way. That's what I would do because why not build a strong foundation and then branch off? That's how I view it. But yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think that's a great way to sum it up and stuff. And I think you hit up on a lot of points that I would agree there. Where I think the name of the game here at White Whale Marketing is maximizing your time under the spotlight. We want to create sustainable models of a sustainable brand model for an athlete, because at the end of the day, we're not marketing the athlete, we're not marketing the sport, we're marketing the person who just happens to play a sport. And I think, with Caleb Williams and stuff, I'm excited to see the steps they're taking. Like, like you said, it's cool, and you hope that, you want to see guys take more risks, be more creative, because those are things that are going to make headlines. Like, the only way you find out about this Neil deal is if you follow Josh Gerben on Twitter and you realize that, like, his old Twitter thing is just, tweeting out trademarks. So unless you follow a guy who's tweeting about all these trademarks and stuff, you don't really hear and see these things until they come into fruition. So in order to generate hype and stuff, doing something crazy and, like we said, trying to go viral maybe with something cool you're trying out, especially as a college student, like, it's great advice for college students in general, as like, aside from being an athlete, the best time to take risks would be now. Like, it's hard because you're looking at, like, the next job, you're trying to finish an exam, you're trying to, like, move on to your next stage in life and try to set a good foundation for yourself. But somewhere in setting up a good foundation, you're not going to be able to afford to take the same risks in the future as you're able to do in college, whether that's trying out for a club, trying out a new experience or an internship or something like that, or trying to hit above your weight class, I guess, for lack of a better term. Whether you're an athlete or not, it seems like if you want to start a personal brand, you don't have to be an athlete to do it, but doing it in college is the best time.
Man, like you sum that up perfectly, where there's kind of three big points that I want to agree with and touch on, and then we can kind of go to the next topic. But the first one, as you said, White Whale Marketing is all about helping athletes maximize their time under the spotlight. And that's exactly what Caleb's doing. So we're all for that. But the second thing that then kind of, builds off that perfectly is we want to help you maximize your time under the spotlight in a sustainable manner, right? We don't want you to kind of throw 3 TDs and then, okay, cool, your brand grew X percent, and then, okay, that's it, right? That's all the brand is. We want to grow that and then kind of, push into another, alleyway and kind of grow it that way as well, right? Where it's kind of building a sustainable platform where it's not just going to be, hey, how do you play today, right? You don't want a sponsor saying, hey, Chris, how many picks did he throw today? Oh, 2? No good. Next week, oh, he threw 3 TDs? Let's do it, right? You don't want that. And then the last thing that you kind of touched on, where it's more broad in regards to, taking chances. It's funny because I think we've chatted about this as well in regards to investments. So kind of away from marketing, this is the time to take your risk, right? If you're a new person, whether it's a young person, I should say, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a person, you want to start a business, you want to start marketing, you want to grow a personal brand, you want to go ahead and run your nail deal, this is the time to do it because, hey, if it doesn't work out, so what? You start again or you try something else out. But once you're maybe a 15-year veteran in the NFL, unless you're a Hall of Famer like Tom Brady starting his TB12 later in the career, that can take off easy because how big he is. But then other athletes, they never built that sustainable platform that we were talking about. So completely agree. And great topic. I know it's going to be something we're going to talk about more, whether it's in regards to the QB controversy and also nil. But now that I'm saying this, the last thing I'll say is Caleb Superman Williams. I like where it's coming from, but there's a real Superman, and that's Shaq. So,
Not Dwight Howard. Come on.
Shaq was first. But that's the thing. When I think of Superman, I'm thinking of Shaq or Dwight Howard. I'm not even thinking about football, right? So
yeah, it's a tough bar to reach. It's a tough bar. He's setting himself up to try to climb a big mountain to take that moniker.
Yeah, or even if you went like, I would have even preferred if you went for like, I don't know, Whooperman or Cooper Wum, or you know what I mean, something with the C and the dub and kind of playing off Superman. If you're having this logo, it looks like Superman with your initials, and you're just gonna call yourself Superman still, like even the silhouette. Like I don't want to get too critical, but I don't know.
Let's see. Maybe this will be on Cold Takes Exposed one day.
Yeah. Hopefully, if you want our information's here, White Whale Marketing, you can talk to us there. But next topic, as always, that one went a little long, but that was good stuff. So our second topic is, it's kind of a big deal, right? Because it's very relevant to what's going on now, especially in Canada. So for those of you who don't know, as you see, Haral has his Vancouver jerseys in the back. Our guy Haral here is working at the Canucks this year. And, Haral, was it today or yesterday that it got approved for 100% capacity?
Yesterday. Last team in the NHL.
Yeah, so big news coming around with, the Canucks going yesterday. And also, the teams in Ontario, if I'm not mistaken, was a week ago saying they're allowed going 100% capacity. So now all vaccinated persons can now go, attend these sporting events. Good news because we're kind of getting back to normalcy, as everyone says. But the issue that we're now seeing is there's a little bit of hesitancy, right? And completely fair. I have a little bit of that as well. And the question we kind of want to have is because we're seeing these stadiums, like for instance, the Bell Center, notoriously known for selling out their stadiums, 21,000 packed, unreal experience. But then I believe the other day, even though they're not doing as well as they should be, they brought in 16,000, so about a quarter less than the usual. And then the Senators, I know they've had their ups and downs, but they also had their lowest attendance ever. And then I think even the Maple Leafs didn't sell out. So you're kind of seeing a trend where people aren't necessarily comfortable kind of going out. And the question I wanted to ask is, what could we suggest, or maybe what ideas can we come up with that we would recommend teams or even leagues could do in regards to pushing a campaign to, help these fans become more comfortable with attending these events going forward, right? So what do you think things can do in regards to the marketing push, or even just a way to kind of go back to normal, kind of support these leagues and teams again?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting question because the first question, the precursor would be, why are the seats empty? There's multiple reasons for it, right? One reason could be that there's a lot of members who are season ticket holders, for example, that are yet to be vaccinated. And as a result, they're unable to attend the arena. So that's like one population, like one part of the population you're dealing with. The other half would be people who are still concerned about going out into the public, right? Like still being like, especially with hockey arenas, you're in an enclosed environment, lots of ventilation and stuff, lots of airflow. It's a big open space, but it's open on the inside. There's still a roof there. And so there's still that feeling of, you're indoors, you got people to your left and your right that you haven't seen like ever. Like Drake would say, way too many people are here right now that you didn't know last year. Like there's just
nice.
Good. You like that, eh? Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to say is because you have two almost different polarizing reasons why people aren't filling the seats there, as a brand or as a sports team, I feel like you almost have to double down is the wrong word, but you've got to pick a vision and you've got to like send it. And like we've always talked about like how brands that are successful with like their sales and their revenues are ones that resonate well with their audience because there's a clear message, it's aligned. And so the first thing that comes to mind for me is whether it's through sports partnerships or brand deals, you got to make the arena feel safe, clean, and a great environment for people to come into and safely enjoy their sports. I think
Mhm.
Clorox had a really good partnership with MLSE and with the Raptors. And during the pandemic, they had a lot of great activations with cleaning products. And during the pandemic, that was important because we were all looking for we all know the scares of trying to get it to hand sanitizer, wipes and all these things to clean all our surfaces and stuff. There's a big craze about that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think you got to take that one step further and apply it to, just making the arena clean. You've got to show that the arena is safe and clean through, outreach, through marketing. You've got to have some cool brand activations and stuff. Working with organizations and brands that are related to safety and cleanliness, in my opinion, and even related to the vaccination efforts are the best ways to get people in, because whether the brand likes it or not, you're not able to get unvaccinated people into the arena just yet. So if you want to maximize your revenue now and you want to get fans in the stands, if you want to make your product look good, because at the end of the day, sellouts make products look good, you
Mhm.
need to get vaccinated people in the arena. And so for better or for worse, you've got to cater to the vaccinated. You've got to encourage more people to get vaccinated and focus your brand on being part of this public health effort.
Yeah, and man, you touched on some unreal points there where, you're talking about MLSE throughout the pandemic. I know you're from Toronto, so maybe that's close to home. For me, right, I'm located here in Ottawa, so what's close and what's most relevant at the moment is in regards to the Senators. So obviously, there's different reasons we kind of talk about. We don't need to go into there because people have their reasons, whether it's getting vaccinated or not comfortable going to events. But a city like Ottawa, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is 90% single dose, so very, very, very vaccinated, which is good in regards to that, getting people back to sporting events. Um, so that's when you kind of have to answer the question: is okay, if these people are eligible and are able to go to these games, why aren't they? And kind of builds off what you're saying, right? So I completely agree on what you're saying in regards to these activations, right? Where hey, that's a perfect opportunity to kind of do much more than what is it, a board sponsor in hockey, right? Where it just says pizza, pizza right beside the blue line. Why not, team up with Clorox, Purell, whatever? Be like, hey, let's make this content marketing piece where, maybe we have the athletes or not, yeah, athletes shoot this video content with us where, they're the ones helping clean the stadium, right? Where they're making sure everything's fine. Maybe the mascot's the one testing it to make sure it's, clean with like their glove, their white glove and all that. Different kind of things kind of do that to not make light of the situation, but at least be a little fun about it, right? Because we've been living like this for what, like 2 years now, almost. Um, and maybe just kind of bring a smile to some people's faces and showing that you still care while doing it in a fun manner. And there's different things like that as well, where now you can't have the paper towel or the soap machines being empty. Those always have to be full. The floor always has to be clean. Maybe even putting up like these plexiglass dividers. I went to a Sens game the other day. Didn't have those. Maybe should. I think they always should. But I was gonna say something. We don't need to get into that. But yeah. So I completely agree. Different things like that. Where I understand what you're saying, right? In regards to hockey, especially in Canada, the stadiums that are going to be used going forward now are going to be enclosed because it's too cold here to be playing outside 24/7. But maybe there's things you kind of do, or maybe they're opening up extra entrances, right? I know they have these fire escapes that are kind of, at the end of the game, if you want to get out quickly, people go out through these different doors, but they're not necessarily entry points. Maybe open those, right? So it's not always just the front entrance, right? Maybe you have 10 entrances. Yeah, maybe it's going to cost you a bit more, but it's maybe investing and bringing people back, right? So people are going to be comfortable because they're not necessarily shoulder to shoulder when doing the security check to go in. Same thing can maybe be for how can you do this about concessions? I guess have all the concession stands open would be one thing. I think when I went to the Ottawa one, it wasn't. Maybe have a little more people going up and down the aisles, or maybe even do the thing like they do in the first bowl, at least at Sens games, where you have these waiters or waitresses coming up to you with an iPad, and then that's how you do your order. So you're not necessarily shoulder to shoulder at the beer line. Because I think that was a concern here for the Sens games during the regular season. But there's different things like that you kind of do where, maybe you kind of make some fun out of it, right? Where, hey, if you order from the lady from the lady or the man from the iPad, maybe you have every 10th person gets a free beer or something, and Molson's providing that, and you're kind of teaming up with them and making those activations. So I think there's a bunch of different opportunities, but just kind of
wouldn't it be hilarious if like when the ice is being cleaned, or like for example, like imagine just like a company sponsoring something like for the Zamboni, and there's just a big mask on the face of the Zamboni. Like it's an inanimate object, but since everyone's supposed to be wearing masks and stuff, it'd be so funny to have a giant mask on a Zamboni. Or like when like the ice crew is cleaning the ice in between like TV timeouts and stuff, like all their shovels say like Purell on it or Clorox or something, because the ice is literally being cleaned and it's supposed to be smooth, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
like that to make light of the situation, and like just to like kind of help people just put a smile on their face. I guess I sometimes like it's definitely tacky. It's a little bit, I guess, I don't know, cringeworthy, you might say, but sometimes that gives people a smile on their face, whether it's a smile of like, ha, that's funny, or a smile like, oh my god, you can't be serious about this. It makes people think, like, it just gives people something else to think about. And also on that little point that you mentioned about changing the fan experience to make them more comfortable,
Mhm.
I think it's a great idea to, like obviously the biggest thing, and I think this is just it's not a people problem, it's an everybody problem. But if the game starts at 7, everyone's getting there at 6:45. Like we get it. We have things to do and stuff, but if like, the whole point of the in-arena experience and with sports brands and stuff, if you open the doors up an hour and a half early, and you have activations on the concourse, or you give people
Yeah,
reasons to come to the arena early, I think you shorten the lines up. I think shortening the lines up even in non-COVID times is obviously a big priority for like
for
teams and
sure.
stuff. Right? So you want to create more, like obviously with respect to operational costs and stuff. You just want to create activations, work with partners and stuff to make it so that people might want to come early. Like Vegas does a great job. Obviously, they have like shows in between intermissions and stuff. Like they create a real Vegas spectacle out of it, because that's just the Vegas thing. It's all about entertainment. But maybe that's a way to get other people in early. Like have like some a performer come in before the game or something like that. Have some cool activations. Have like a happy hour or something where if people come early, they get like cheap beers early. So instead of people going out like trying to hit up a restaurant before the game because they're save money, like if you have competitive prices to concessions, food, and alcohol at other compared to restaurants outside of the arena, people will just
Mhm.
be like, hey, why don't we just get to the arena early, skip the line, we're already in, and then it makes people want to spend more money at the rink. So I think there's a lot of ways, and it seems like it's just good for business to create more strategies that make people feel safe, but also just keep people in the arena more, shorten the lines and stuff. I think there's a lot of good alignment there.
100%. Like you're saying, this is something that should almost even be continued on beyond just COVID and getting people comfortable again, feeling safe, because this does help the business overall, right? You want people getting to the, being in the stadium as long as possible, whether it's, spending time in stores, concessions, or getting thirsty, whatever. But yeah, like you're saying, I know in the Sens, once again, just speaking from experience, they used to do $1 hot dogs on Thursdays. The stadium would be packed at 6 p.m. and it was a 7:30 start because everyone was getting 4 hot dogs for dinner, because rather than getting a $20 meal. So different things like that, right? And even just making an experience where, I know on Saturday I have tickets to the game, but I can't go. They're doing like an Oktoberfest, which is very cool because the senders and Stutzla, so they're kind of working off that angle, and they're providing different types of foods or even just concessions that kind of build off that. So I'm all for that. And then there's some other things I wanted to touch on because you gave me an idea. Oh, in regards to meal delivery, that's the big thing now. Everyone does what Uber Eats, DoorDash, X, Y, Z. Maybe that's a way to even get students in there, right? Where I know students sometimes get special pricing. Why not get them in there, go to the Uber zone or something, and the way they order their food or their beer, you just go on the app and you partner with Uber, DoorDash, wherever the ones I said, and then that's how you get it, right? You're literally ordering on your own phone, and then you just have delivery people bring it to you rather than having people going up and down the aisles with iPads. So I think that's kind of something interesting to do, and also, like you're saying, reduces wait times, also reduces people going shoulder to shoulder for safety, and like I'm sure if we talked about this topic for an hour, we just get more and more ideas. So yeah, you can guys, whoever's listening, you can hit us up for consulting fees, and we'll do that very shortly. Last but not least, a big one, right? If you're a sports fan into gaming, this one, tearjerker. It might be the end of an era. I don't believe it's confirmed yet when I last checked, but there are discussions that FIFA, so the soccer organization, and EA Sports, the company that makes the video games, I should say, it looks like they're going to be ending their long spelled partnership where it's no longer going to be called FIFA 22, and EA Sports is going to have to go a different direction, rebrand it, where they probably won't even have the rights to players, or at least all the players and the team. So um, sad times. There's not really much to say there, other than what's next. If this takes place, what's next for either side?
It's man, I don't know. It's a good question. I was about to say something really cool, really corny actually. Yeah, I was gonna say, we hear the words before the game loads. The first words we hear are EA Sports in the game, and it sounds like FIFA's about to not be in the game.
Yeah.
Um, it's an end of an era. I don't know why I was so fixated on just making that pun where I just lost my track. But I think this is just a great example of how it's the pros, the cons, the highs, the lows of branding. When you have something so foundational to your brand that's completely out of your control as EA, these are some of the consequences, right? You reap the benefits of the name of FIFA because everyone recognizes FIFA as the world like brand of soccer. FIFA, soccer, great like synchronization there for people in their minds, and that's what people have been like hardwired to assume when they hear the word FIFA. But FIFA has had a long history and continues to have and create a long history of call it what you want, corruption, scandals, just it's bad for the brand, it's bad for the sport. At the end of the day, it's taking away from the essence of what's football or soccer or whatever you call it is all about. And EA is finally facing the consequences. They reaped the benefits for so long, and now they don't want to go down with the ship, and I don't blame them. But I'm trying to think to myself, what would you call it if not FIFA? Like, I don't know. Like at the end
Soccer
of the day,
22.
Yeah, Soccer 22. Like we think about NHL, we think of NBA is the one where I kind of appreciate it because we call it 2K21, right? Or we'll call it 2K something. Like 2K Sports has done a good job about it. But I just don't know if it's gonna be like, EA 22 and people are gonna be like, yep, EA, you're talking about soccer, right? As long as the NHL and as long as like at least NFL also rebranded out with Madden. And anything could change with the Madden brand name and stuff, but like, they think of the game as Madden, not NFL. NHL and FIFA, you think of it with these leagues and stuff. So the moment the moment the league ruins the sport or creates some bad headlines and ruins its brand, EA is going to have to pivot. And I think it's a smart move. It's a smart thing to consider. People are not going to like the change, but I think with the behemoth of a sports game that FIFA has been, especially with Football Ultimate Team, I don't think Pro Evolution Soccer is going to be a very strong alternative at this point. And with FIFA being the giant that it is and EA kind of having like almost a monopoly on that market, if anyone's going to succeed with a rebrand, it would be the EA banner there. And so I hope they do it. I'm just really excited to see what it will like end up being because it's going to create consequences. It's going to be interesting for us to change our behaviors. Are we going to still call it FIFA for the next couple of years? Probably. But at what point do fans start, changing, calling it something else? How do people react to it to be called something else? Because I guess the last thing is, this is also a question for you, Chris, and feel free to add on here. But the FIFA scandals, they hurt. We don't like them. We don't like the controversy and stuff because it ruins the essence of the game. But on a very, very high level, on a day-to-day level, how much do we really care about what FIFA is doing and how bad, the roots of FIFA are? When it comes to the game, it doesn't matter, right? It's just a name for us.
No. For the game, you don't really like care, right? Because it's almost a like individualistic mentality that we have now. Like, whatever. Like, look, love Nike, but like sometimes in the past, some of the things they've done haven't always been the best, right? But hey, but I still want my white swoosh on my black hoodie, right? So there's pros and cons to everything, and I think that even goes for both sides in regards to FIFA and EA in regards to this deal because EA, like you're saying, we're talking about building a brand in regards to Caleb. They built this brand, but they built it synonymous to FIFA. Where I don't know about you, but when I was playing FIFA 21 last year, there was like teams in Serie A, specifically Juventus, the one because I was trying to play with Ronaldo, and I was like, what the hell? Where's Juventus? And it was called like Piemonte, right? I was like, this is awful. Like I'm someone who very much is. I like it being very authentic. I will buy the new game. I know sports games don't change that much, but for instance, earlier today when we're waiting to kind of record this, I was doing the free trial for NHL 22, and the new jerseys alone is like having the Seattle, having the updated rosters. That's something I care about. But then if EA is going to be making a soccer game with random team names where it's going to be Manchester FC rather than Manchester United. Because I know Roma, they did Roma FC rather than AS Roma. I hate that, right? I think it's just so far off what you actually want in regards to an authentic experience where that you actually feel like you're in the game, as you were saying in regards to the slogan. Um, yeah, so I think that's the negative for EA. The pro for EA, um, like you're saying, they have the monopoly. I find it might still take away from it, right? Because what if, um, there is no necessarily like foundation. People are like, wait, what league am I playing in, or what team am I playing in? It just kind of goes back to just a soccer game where it almost kind of goes to I don't know if you ever played the NCAA football games in like 10 years ago or something, but there's no because the nil wasn't available at the time, so there was no player names, right? So you'd be playing with Texas A&M, and it wasn't Johnny Manziel. It was just number two, John Doe, right, as the quarterback. So realistically, if someone like me sees that, and yeah, they kind of updated the jerseys to be similar, but they didn't have the rights to do it fully similar. Why would I buy the game the next year, right? So even though they do have a monopoly and they would be keeping that core clientele, why would someone like myself or other people continuously buy the game every year? The gameplay, no offense, I was playing the FIFA 22 and it kind of looks, or not FIFA, NHL 22. Gameplay seems a little, I don't know, I don't like it. It doesn't feel nice on the PS5, on the new one. The PS4 version felt nicer. So that alone, that's where it's like, like there's a little pull where maybe the monopoly doesn't come through. In regards to FIFA, you're talking about it, greedy bastards a little bit. Um,
Just a bit, right?
just a bit. And like, it's probably not the best wording to use there, but they're obviously going to go for the highest bidder, and props them that they have the right to do so. They have, the sport, the brand that they can do it, but then also kind of hurts the sport in the sense of you had such a valuable franchise with EA where everyone was playing, where non-soccer fans were playing because they had such a good experience from, Ultimate Team or even just playing with their friends because I think FIFA is probably the best game to play with friends because it's so easy and so, intuitive where you can kind of just pick it up, no problem. And PES, I don't know if they're gonna be able to maintain that level of execution, right? That the EA was, and then
I
that's kind
guess
of negative. So yeah, you'll make more money, but then I think you kind of lose that quality.
I guess that's the biggest thing, right? Like it comes down to what is EA going to do to salvage the game if they don't have the FIFA name behind it, right? Like you mentioned, playing with Piemonte Calciao or whatever Juventus's name is obviously not fun, right? So maybe the strategy for EA is now, instead of dropping billions of dollars on this new deal with FIFA, if they're able to still negotiate with UEFA, the EPL, like La Liga, Bundesliga, and negotiate with the individual leagues on separate deals to still use the name, image, and likeness of their players, I guess it all comes down to, we might have to open up a legal team here at White Whale Marketing because we have no idea who owns the rights to these players and stuff. But exactly, it comes down to who owns it. If FIFA doesn't own the names to all these players and stuff, then obviously the biggest thing, I know international play is really important and people like playing with their home countries and stuff, but if you can own, like, obviously FIFA does not have they don't own the name Brazil. And if, you have the rights to Neymar from UEFA, if there is not a problem, if they don't get sued for using Neymar on Brazil in their game somehow, I don't see as big of a backlash. So again, it comes down to basically, as long as they can secure the rights of the things that matter the most, like especially the name, image, and likeness of the players and the club logos especially, sure, you might lose it on the international side of it, and FIFA might sell their rights to someone who makes the FIFA game every World Cup year or something like that. But the more important thing year round, I think, is still the club aspect of it. And so if they can salvage that and hold on to that and not lose it to someone like PES or anybody else, then they still create a strong marketable product that I think people would still want to buy.
Yeah, and you're completely right. I don't know the legality of it. One day we'll, as I was saying, a little shout out to Robbie. Hopefully, we'll get a legal team here and we can kind of have these questions answered. But I know there's countries, for instance, I'm Portuguese, so I play with Portugal. FIFA doesn't, or EA, I should say now, because they're not synonymous together. They don't have the rights to, the FPF for Portuguese soccer. So that kind of has a different aspect. Maybe a different route to kind of go to kind of salvage this game is maybe we were talking about, NHL and, these different leagues or games are called after these specific leagues. Maybe EA decides, you're like, you know what, we're just going to partner with the EPL because we think that's the one that has the largest fan base. We talked about on other podcasts that's the league that seems to have the most interest in going global, or maybe even MLS. But I think that'd be
it's a tough sell to the international market.
Yeah, that's what we'll say. But you know what I mean? Maybe they call it EPL 23, right? Where, yeah, you have your major clubs, and that's like the one you kind of play with in regards to NHL. That's the main pieces. And then maybe you strike deals with, smaller leagues that aren't necessarily as connected to FIFA as able to sell their licensing as, maybe Serie A teams were. Who knows if Juventus will be with Ronaldo gone now, but
yeah.
I think that's how they kind of salvage it. But really, I think FIFA kind of loses in this too in regards to quality because, yeah, this might be nice sometimes, and that's kind of a great way to kind of sum up the podcast. When we're talking about brands, yeah, the dome might be nice sometimes, but it's much more important to kind of build that sustainability aspect, and that's what FIFA and EA have been able to do. And, what if FIFA goes chases the bag right now? You got an unreal bag from PES that we always talk about. What if the game and the soccer video game franchise dies in 5 years? And then what if EA Sports their new EPL 23, as we're saying, does so well? And then FIFA's like, hey, take us back. FIFA's like, or not, EA is gonna be like, why are we gonna take you? We're doing so well with EPL. We don't need you. Right? So I don't know. It's interesting times, and that's the beauty of the podcast. There's always something new to talk about in regards to the sports world. That's why you should subscribe to the Sport Marketeer. Unreal stuff. You're going to have all this content in written form. So if you miss something, you don't need to rewind. You don't need to be like, hey, where did they say that in the 40-minute podcast? It's right there, crisp and nice for you. Images as well. Looks nice. And yeah, you can refer to that. You can then maybe even on a date, in a meeting, whatever you like, you be like, hey, did you know XYZ, FIFA and EA now working together, and we can give you these points? And be like, wow, you're so smart. You subscribe to the Sport Marketeer. So click the link in the bio here. It's going to get sent to your inbox every Friday. I would do it now because it's value that you're not going to get anywhere else. But that's episode 11 for the White Whale Marketing Podcast. Follow us on social media. Check us out on our website, whitewhalemktg.com. We'll talk to you guys next week. Hurrah, everyone. Enjoy your week. We'll chat all again soon.